All right. How's everybody doing today? Today is April 2nd, 2026, and I am your host, American Lumberjack. And I have a good show in store for you today. Not a lot of stories, but some good stories. And we're going to touch on some things constitutionally that I think everyone should know, because a lot of people make assumptions about the Constitution or state things like they know the Constitution, when in all actuality, they don't really know the Constitution at all. They just profess and proclaim the Constitution as if it's who they are, when in all actuality, it's just a title to hold like anything else. So before we get into anything tonight, you need to understand that America stands at a turning point, not one that will fix everything, but one that will define her forever. Because what's happening right now isn't random. It's not isolated, and it's not slowing down. Across government, across technology, across institutions, power is moving fast. And it's moving at a rate that is not going to stop anytime soon. And when power moves fast, there's one thing that keeps it in check, and that's justice. According to Amos 5:24, let judgment run down as waters, as righteousness as a mighty stream. Without justice, you can't have truth. And with great power, you need justice to keep that power in check. You need justice to do a lot. Justice isn't supposed to trickle. It's supposed to flow like a river. So when it doesn't, it must be demanded by the system. And we do not follow currents. We test them. We do not accept surface. We cut through it. So tonight, we're going to break down all of these stories that we have in store. Like I said, we got some constitutional things. We have some SCOTUS things, and we have some moves with mail-in ballots and such. But we're going to break these stories down and show you exactly where the pressure is building up at. And we're going to start cutting through it with prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, God, we thank you for today. We thank you for this awesome opportunity that you bless us with to share truth, to know truth, and to know you, God. So we give you praise, glory, and honor first and foremost before we do anything, Lord. And we just ask that you are with us throughout the rest of this week, going into Resurrection Sunday, Lord. And we thank you for the sacrifice that Jesus gave for all mankind, whether they believe or not. In Jesus' mighty name I pray, amen. So we're going to jump right into it with our first story here. And this story, I have some videos for you with someone that might explain it a little bit better than me, but there is a 14th Amendment showdown. And the Supreme Court has just heard arguments on one of the most consequential constitutional questions in decades: birthright citizenship. President Donald Trump has issued an executive order aimed at ending automatic citizenship to those that are born in the United States. Now, we know this was a big to-do at the beginning of 2025, and now it's no different starting out in 2026. Illegal immigrants and temporary visa holders. That's the argument. The 14th Amendment has been interpreted to broadly accept these people as United States citizens if they're born here. The administration says that citizenship should apply only to those truly under U.S. jurisdiction. Now, you have to pay attention to those words, U.S. jurisdiction. If you move to another nation and you accept citizenship there, and the citizenship that you accept does not allow dual citizenship, like Japan or Germany, they do not allow you to have dual citizenship. You have to renounce your old citizenship. You fall under the jurisdiction of that said country. This is not something that is simple, especially in America. Anyone born on U.S. soil has the ability to claim citizenship, or at least it is something that was left vague by the founding fathers, which is a here and there kind of thing. Some justices push back, saying that pointing to this plain language of the Constitution, more than 150 years of precedence, and the 1898 United States versus Wong Kim Ark, that these people automatically get citizenship being born here. But we're going to jump over here and let a constitutional attorney, Chris Ann Hall, tell you what that really means.
Chris Ann, welcome to Victory News. Let me ask you this. Tennessee AG Jonathan Scarmetti filed a SCOTUS brief on behalf of all Republican attorney generals stating this, quote, each child born in this country is precious, no matter their parents' immigration status, but not every child is entitled to American citizenship. What's your reaction as a constitutional lawyer to this?
You know, I've actually studied birthright citizenship for a number of years. I've even created educational videos. The truth is, the 14th Amendment does not create birthright citizenship. And the key phrase in it is, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, was never, ever meant to include foreigners, visitors, or even those here illegally. As a matter of fact, Senator Jacob Howard, the author of the 14th Amendment, said that it will not include persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, or families of ambassadors. That means you don't get to come here on a visitor's visa, have a baby, and call it American.
So there you have it. She lays it out plain and simple from the authors, well, one of the three authors of the 14th Amendment, that if you guys don't understand that when they make an amendment and they bring it before Congress to have it voted upon and, go to the 2/3 vote with the states and so on and so forth to gain access to this and allow it to become an actual amendment, it has to be debated. And the intent of the author is so very important. It is something that if you don't have, it's left up to interpretation. Well, in this particular case, in these debates, the 14th Amendment was laid out clear, what it meant, what it didn't mean, and how it should be implemented. But you have the case of Wong Kim Ark, where, again, it has been left open to interpretation. But even in that, the opinions of the Supreme Court justices lay out pretty clearly what it is meant when they point back to the original author's intent on creating it. So I have another clip of Chris Ann Hall letting us know what it truly means. Oops.
And they're always saying, Wong Kim Ark, you lose. Okay? If you are repeating to me, Wong Kim Ark, as a justification that someone on a visitor visa can come to Disneyland, have a baby, and now that baby is a citizen, you are either ignorant, illiterate, or have never actually read yourself the opinion in Wong Kim Ark, because that is a very disingenuous presentation of the facts from that opinion. Wong did not establish jus soli, or birth on the soil, as a constitutional doctrine for every baby born within the boundaries of the United States. Quite to the contrary, the court specifically, narrowly tailored their opinion to Wong's specific circumstances. Wong's parents, the court decided, was subject to the jurisdiction thereof because Wong's parents were permanent legal residents under the China-U.S. treaty called the Burlingame Treaty. This opinion did not address children born to temporary visitors. This opinion did not address children born to illegal aliens, and any broader interpretations beyond Wong's interpretation of subject to the jurisdiction thereof is beyond the specified facts of this case. Now,
so there you have it. It's pretty plain and simple. When you take emotions out, you take feelings out, and you just look at this, how it is written. Now, there are some conservative leaning justices that are kind of sort of pushing back on this overall. But when you just look at it for what it is and take the intent, aka context of the original authors, you have to understand that America is not some country that just says anybody and everybody can come in. And if that were the case, we would not have immigration laws at all. It would forego those altogether and just open the floodgates to let everybody in. Now, Trump has been saying this for a long time, saying that, hey, I don't believe that anyone should just be able to come in. The 14th Amendment has been written in a way that is ambiguous, and they have used court cases to shape how our immigration system is supposed to be, when in all actuality, that was never the original intent. The problem here is you have activist judges, liberal judges, that have this identity crisis where they think that they are supposed to be the superhero of all these poor, unfortunate souls who actually break the immigration laws by sneaking in here illegally and then birthing out of a baby and saying, hey, this baby's an American citizen. I get to stay here because this baby's an American citizen, and they have no one else to take care of them. See, the problem here with this situation is that you broke a law, and just because you have a situation come up during the breaking of that law does not mean that you get to usurp the repercussions of said law and your offspring get out of jail free card. So if you look at it from this perspective, if a woman is pregnant and she goes to jail while pregnant and has the baby in jail, she doesn't get to keep the baby in jail. They take the baby and separate the mama and the baby. So in the same concept here, these people should be deported all equally. This was not the intent of the original authors and founders of the 14th Amendment, just to let anybody come in. You even go back to the Constitution and look at how it treats people who come over who are not a part of America, say royalty of another community or another country or another nation. They come in and they're not going to just come here and claim citizenship. Ask yourself this. I said this before when this first came up. If the Queen of England, let's say she's a young old lady, or young lady, not young old, but young lady, she comes over to the United States and she's pregnant and she's on a diplomatic visit and she has the baby on United States soil. Is that baby a United States citizen? Or is that baby a attachment to her mother, whom is not a United States citizen? That Queen of England is not under the jurisdiction of the United States of America. And these are the questions that you should be asking yourself when you hear these liberal ideologies saying you should just let anybody come over. They've lived here all their lives and they're family now. No, they're not. No, they're not. They are in active law-breaking stances. They are actively taking up a stance where they're breaking the law that was created, that if you yourself broke, you'd be locked up. Think about that. You would face a harsher punishment for doing something similar. And there's, again, no other country on the planet that will allow you to do this. So if borders matter, if immigration matters, why is it that the United States has this ambiguous understanding, or should I say activist, liberal, social justice warrior mentality when it comes to the 14th Amendment? It's pretty clear that if you can't understand how it's written, then you need to go look at the intent of the original author. Otherwise, you're just doing what everybody else is doing and letting your feelings dictate how things should go. And we all know what happens when you let your feelings dictate how things should go. They tend to get hurt. And when they're hurt, people act out. But in other news, our next story here is coming to America. We have here a very special guest coming to America here. A major diplomatic movement is going to take place here shortly. King Charles III is set to visit the United States on April 27th through April 30th of this year. And why this matters is he has been invited to address Congress. Addressing Congress. Someone that is not beholden to the United States in any way, shape, or form is addressing Congress. This is going to make him the first British monarch to do so in 35 years. This is not something ceremonial. This is something that is strategic. This visit is aimed at reinforcing the U.S.-UK alliance, which has been quite shaky if you've been paying attention to anything other than the war in Iran or Epstein files or anything to do with Charlie Kirk or Erica Kirk for that matter, or Candace Owens, because, you know, that's a whole kerfuffle that they got going on there. If you pay attention and zoom out, you can see things as they're really meant to be seen. At the time when global tensions are rising and relationships are being tested, you have to have some coming to Jesus moment. Otherwise, there might be turmoil that could lead to worse happenings in the United States. So the recent disagreements between the United States and the European allies have created a hardcore friction, one that is really upset everyone and left a bad taste in multiple people's mouths. At the 2026 Munich Security Conference, the divide became even more clear between the United States and the European nations. The United States and parts of Europe are no longer fully aligned in their stances. Trump has always stated he's not for NATO. Trump has always stated that he's not for the UN because he feels that we pay too much money. But now, on the flip side, because of these recent actions that the United States has taken in the war against Iran with Israel, partnerships are starting to look a little rough. Some European nations have pushed back on the United States because, again, of their Middle East actions. And in some cases, they outright, flat out refuse to even allow America to have airspace access in their nations. And no landing here to refuel and no base support. If we have a base that's for the United States, you can't come here. And there's no operational assistance at all from any of these nations because they really don't want to be a part of it. They see this thing as something that is not good, nor should the United States have even partaken of, right? So this raises some serious questions. Ultimately, is what is the strength of the alliance between the United States and Europe, most of Europe? If support disappears when it matters most, what does that mean for NATO? Alliances are tested under pressure, not when things are stable, but when decisions are major decisions carry heavy consequences. What do? This visit signals something very important overall, that maybe, because we don't know what's going to be said and we don't know how it's going to be handled, but maybe this is an attempt at stabilizing a relationship that's on the rocks and under heavy strain. We'll have to wait and see. I know these liberals are all no kings, no kings. Are you going to say the same thing to King Charles when he comes? Because he's a king. Just food for thought, something that you guys should munch on for a little bit, so to speak. Our next segment here is Christian SCOTUS. And I know we are moving quite quickly. Short show today, but pay attention to what's being said. The Supreme Court has just issued a major ruling. A lot's happening with the Supreme Court that needs to happen and should have happened a long time ago, but a major ruling has been issued that will shape the foreseeable future on a lot of things. An 8-1 decision striking down parts of Colorado's ban on so-called conversion therapy for minors has really hit the ground hard and shaken everyone that's involved, both sides. A Christian counselor challenged the law, saying that the state is restricting what she can say to her clients while in therapy sessions, which, you have that whole talk of patient-client or client doctor confidentiality, and things are not supposed to be said outside of that. Well, some parents got upset about some of the things that were being said and went to the courts in Colorado, and Colorado banned things that could be said behind closed doors, which is really an overreach on the government's part in this case. But we know that Colorado, being in a very liberal area and a very liberal state itself, it would behoove you to think that this was going to happen anyway eventually, because they don't align with Christian values. They don't align with truth. They align with what makes you feel good. And if you say anything other than that, you got to stop talking about it. But specifically, the conversations around sexuality and identity. That's what this ruling 8-1 in favor of this Christian counselor, because she challenged it properly. So what the court said and ruled is this was not simply regulating treatment, it was regulating speech. And that's where Colorado messed up. You can't tell someone what they can and can't say. Again, that's a First Amendment violation. And it's targeting a certain viewpoint based on content. So not only does this hit here, which the Supreme Court says with freedom of speech, it also hits them regulating religion. This lady is a Christian counselor, and if these clients choose to come to her, that's a choice. And that Christian counselor can speak on any viewpoint she so sees fit. because she's not rendering any real treatment. She's just talking about what's going on. Ultimately, this falls under the First Amendment, like I stated, freedom of speech. And the justices ended up saying that the government cannot decide which viewpoints are allowed inside of a counseling room. That would mean that the patient and the doctor confidentiality is being breached at that point in time if they know what's being said or dictating how things are said inside that room. The unusual part about this is that this was not a divided court. And you would think, being that we have quite a few liberal judges, that it wouldn't have been 8-1, maybe 9-6, or maybe 5-4. No, this was 8-1. Even the liberal justices joined the majority. And that signals something broader, a concern about government overreach into speech. And they almost unanimously said, you can't do this. This ruling does not just affect Colorado. It impacts a similar law in 20 different states. This case was never just about therapy. It was about who controls speech and your freedom of religion. If your religion says that a certain lifestyle is not right, and these parents choose to bring these children to this particular therapist, then so be it. When the government crosses into a freedom of speech or freedom of religion territory, the Constitution draws a hard line, and it should be so. We have to stop living in this fantasy land where, again, as I said it at the beginning of the show, we state that we know the Constitution and talk about the Constitution, but we don't actually implement the Constitution of the United States of America. It is something that we should be living by day to day and practicing day to day and knowing day to day. So when these things arise, you know when your rights are being trampled on. See, these liberal judges run out here and they say these things are being done because some activist runs up and says, we need to fight this, and they violate your constitutional rights. And for the most part, people just lay down and take it. They just take it. Say, just run over me. It's okay. Whatever. Just do what you want to do. No, because if you continue to do that, then these judges, which we know they have been out of control lately, these judges will continue to do so, and it will be lawfare on we the people instead of them doing what they're supposed to be doing, hearing non-bias and making decisions based on their impartiality to the subject matter. But we have people who are getting in these positions, being appointed to these positions, who do not care about what you believe. They do not care about the Constitution. They do not care about your biblical beliefs. They only care about what they can get away with. And if we, the people, don't know our rights, they will continue to overstep. Every overstep of a constitutional right is treasonous. So why are these people not being treated as criminals? They're breaking the law in which they took oaths to uphold, be it Congress, executive, or the judicial branch. They uphold these constitutional protected rights. And when they violate these things, why are they still left to be in these positions or in office? Why are they not removed post haste? It's because we, the people, don't know our rights. We think that they control all in that area. We have the power to recall these people. And if they choose to be tyrannical, then we can go through other methods to have them recalled. And if it still doesn't work, then possibly a Second Amendment action is required. However, we have to do the proper steps before we ever get to that. That is the last resort. However, you wouldn't know that if you didn't know your rights. Please, for all intents and purposes, pick up your Constitution and learn it. And if you're a Christian, pick up your Constitution and your Bible. They go hand in hand. If you don't know that, that lets me know that you're not doing your due diligence in studying the Word or your state or federal constitutions that are out here to protect you, not to protect me, not to protect anyone else, but to protect each individual American, because my rights end where yours begins. And our rights continue past where Congress sets up and says that they don't. When Congress says in any amendment that Congress shall have the power to appropriate this legislation, that's a problem. Maybe pick up your Constitution and see which ones are problematic. It's just basic common sense. And more common sense is your mail-in common sense. Now, this story is fun for me. This is some good news here because Trump is not playing games. He is pushing for a major shift in election policy, and it is now underway because he just signed a huge EO. He signed a sweeping EO targeting mail-in voting and voter rolls. Key, not just mail-in voting, but voter rolls. If you have been paying attention, you know that Minnesota doesn't want to turn in their voting rolls. Georgia didn't want to turn in their voting rolls. And when these voter rolls get turned in, things are uncovered that weren't previously uncovered. And it seems like somebody, who knows, has been doing some nefarious actions behind the scenes. The order calls for a creation of a national database for eligible voters using federal records, including Social Security data and citizenship records. So you see how these things are going hand in hand? Trump's trying to clean up who is or isn't a citizen. And it's also going to strong arm and help out this mail-in EO by tailoring it to show who really is a citizen or not. The goal here is to confirm who is eligible to vote. And you hear the liberals all the time, no illegals are voting, no illegals are voting. Well, we have people that are Chinese nationals who voted in multiple states and then getting arrested for that. If it happened one time, that's one time too many, but it happened more than that. So mail-in changes would actually fix these problems. It would also fix the issue where people are voting in multiple states, and having people actually have to register this information out the door will stop a lot of the changes and issues that are taking place in states with mail-in ballot voting, where they don't have to verify in certain states, North Carolina being one of them. And this is how you have a Republican Congress, a Republican Senate, a Republican House of Representatives going to the federal, and a Republican lieutenant governor, but somehow you have a Democrat running for or winning the governor position, right? The plan also targets mail-in voting systems. Ballots would be sent only to individuals that are on the verified list that are created from this system, with added measures like tracking systems and secure envelopes, which it's a no-brainer. Why would you want anyone voting in your nation that is not of your nation? If that were the case, anybody could just come in and overthrow your government by simply outvoting the people who either don't vote or vote incorrectly from the get-go. Because and what I mean by voting incorrectly, I mean they're voting without any knowledge of who they're voting for. They're just voting blue no matter who, or voting red until they're dead. That it has to be I hate using the word educated, but a learned voting. People are not paying attention. They're just seeing an R voting, seeing a D voting, and it can't be that way. This would actually clean up a lot of that. And to dispel this crazy talking point the liberals have come up with, if this SAVE Act passes and if mail-in ballot changes happen, then women will no longer be able to vote. Women have been voting before the 19th. Don't believe me? You ain't got to take my word for it. Go look it up. Women have been voting before the 19th Amendment was ever a thing. Yet somehow, some way, you are indoctrinated to believe that you need this amendment to vote. That's one of those amendments I told you about earlier, that it says Congress shall have the power to appropriate this legislation. The Constitution was meant to limit the government, not empower the government. But tracking secure systems and secure envelopes is a no-brainer. Why would you not want that? States are actually being pushed to comply to do this. And if they don't, they risk losing federal funding. Trump is really on the track of put your money where your mouth is. And this is remnants of old Trump. This is the Trump that we want. This is the Trump that promised us that he's going to clean things up. Maybe not necessarily drain the swamp anymore, because he found out that there's actual policies and procedures that you need to follow to be able to do that. But this is what we voted for, what we wanted. We want the pressure applied to these states because these states are acting outside of the will of we the people. They are legislating things like sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, when in all actuality, that has to be voted on by the people. You can't just unanimously at the top make these decisions. These are supposed to be sent down to the people to vote on, because the state is the people, right? So Trump is saying, hey, put your money where your mouth is. If you don't comply, then you don't get any of the money that you rely on. Man, could you imagine if California didn't get the government assistance that it gets? What would happen to California? The state of California would quite literally go under, because contrary to popular belief, it being the world's third or fourth largest GDP or something to that effect, they get bailed out by the federal government more than anyone else. But this raises major constitutional questions ultimately, because we got to stay constitutional here. Critics are arguing that elections are run by the states, not by the federal government. And lawsuits are already being filed and pouring in to block this particular executive order. Just like everything else Trump has done, either the federal judges are blocking it, or states are trying to block it one way or another, which instantaneously will push it up to the Supreme Court. My personal belief here is, which I don't try to give my personal belief on anything, but my personal belief here is that this is not interfering with how states run their elections. This is controlling how the federal government deals with the information it receives, because ultimately the states run it, but the federal government has to vote on it, right? So if you're shoring up your elections and you care about election integrity, as the Democrats always say they do, then why would you not want this? Why would you not want to pass the SAVE Act? Why would you not want to shore up your elections and make sure every person that is voting is American, that every vote is properly counted, not counted 2-3 times, and that no one is voting from other states? None of that. Why would you not want that? I can give you a few ideas. Maybe they don't want that because it messes with who they want in office. It messes up their system where they can keep this system of the same old going. It really does. Election integrity and state authority are now colliding head to head, and it's going to make a big ruckus. One side argues that it's about securing the system. The other side argues and says that the federal government is overreaching. And once again, the courts will likely have to decide this, where the line is drawn. Regardless, I think that this is a beautiful thing. I think that this is something that is necessary. And a lot of things are not being discussed and taken care of as they should have been. And now we are in the situation that we're currently in. So, what's your opinion? I would love to know for what your guys' opinions are on this, because this is something that will shape the future of America forever and change how she functions forever if the Supreme Court will define what a citizen is by way of the 14th, and define who is a citizen by way of the 14th, and also shoring up your elections. That will change things forever. Maybe one side is pushing back so hard because they know if things are locked up, ironclad, they're going to have to either find a new loophole to try to exploit the system, or they'll never win again. Either which way, it needs to be done. This seems to have been something that America has needed for a very long time. Answering questions of ambiguity and making sure the intent of the original authors are heard, and as opposed to what someone feels or thinks. This should be something that is completely nonpartisan, impartial, and just stated as the facts are written out. No feelings, no beliefs, no thoughts, just truth. Ultimately, there is something happening right now, and you can feel it if you're paying attention, that is. Lines are being drawn left and right, up and down, back and forward. Not loudly, not always clearly, but they are being drawn. On one side, you're having a system expanding and trying to push for control. Government authority, technological authority, policy authority. They're all pushing forward. And on the other side, you have people who are supposed to keep that in check by way of true justice. The Constitution states that state authority and individual rights have boundaries. One can't supersede the other. However, you're seeing these things pressed day by day. I'm here for the changes. You should be as well. And if you're not, are you really even American? I'm your host, American Lumberjack. As always, it is always a pleasure to give you truth and to create questions in your mind, not chaos, that really need to be answered. Make sure you're not one of the ones missing the forest for the trees. I'll see you next time.